This is an overview of the NetSupport DNA Management Console. As you'll see, the screen is broken down into a number of distinct areas. Along the top, on the left-hand side, we have the main component selection toolbar, starting with our home screen and moving through each of the key components included in the product. To the right of the main toolbar, you'll see we have a date selection box which applies to activity-based components such as application and internet metering, and allows us to customize the information displayed on the screen to meet a particular date requirement. As well as the dates presented here, the advanced mode allows us to select specific date and time filters down to things such as lunchtime, working hours, out of hours, and more. Down the left-hand side, we have the organizational hierarchy view. Here we can see our top license, in this case a test sale key, and you'll see we can drill down and see departments within the organization as such, and within a department we can see individual PCs, and alongside them we have an indicator for their platform type. As well as this key information, the display here can be customized using the drop-down menu here to allow us to see information such as just the PC name and the PC owner, PC name and last logged on name, and so on. So we can customize the view to meet our requirements. In addition, we have two overlay badges that we can apply to this tree. One to identify any machines that have an outstanding alert, and the second to identify any machines that have an outstanding request for a USB memory stick to be authorized for use. Below the company hierarchy, we also have our dynamic groups. These are pre-supplied within NetSupport DNA, but can be added to using the custom query editor within NetSupport DNA. The dynamic groups are simply criteria-based groupings. So a good example will be, as presented here, all machines that have a 64-bit operating system. If we expand that, you'll see it is a combination of machines from many different departments around the enterprise, and we have similar groupings for Android, iOS, machines with a certain amount of pre-installed memory, machines that have Office installed, and so on. Again, the key with our dynamic groups is these can be customized and added to meet your own requirements. Finally, in the main view, we have our display window that by default shows us a high-level overview of activity across our enterprise. As we move between our tabs, you'll see this data changes to reflect particular component-based information. Let's return back to our home screen. You'll see for each of these menus, they are actually broken into two parts. The top part of the menu allows us to quickly access a component. The bottom part allows us to access features or fine-tune the information that we wish to display on the screen. You'll also note along the menu at the top here, we have a separation between PCs, users, devices, and discovered items. So by default, NetSupport DNA is presenting us with a company hierarchy showing all PCs that have been discovered and are managed on our network. Instead of looking at our enterprise from a device-by-device basis, we can switch to our user mode, which allows us to drill down and see all users that have been identified in the organization, and then we can track their activity even if they've been working on multiple machines across the enterprise. So this allows us to adapt and adjust our usage depending on our own requirements. So we can pick a user and we can see what activity, if any, that they've had on the system. Our next tab, Devices, allows us to identify and manage SNMP-enabled devices. So in addition to discovering and managing all PCs on the network, we can also, within the DNA environment, identify network switches, network-enabled printers, and more. And once discovered, we can manage, drill down, and see specific information. In this case, for a Cisco switch, we can see information against each interface and so on. As you'll see, as we move between the components, the color scheme in the DNA console changes, and our active menu changes to provide us with the options relevant to that component. Our final tab, Discovered, is currently empty, and this is a new feature in DNA which allows the system to constantly poll the network, and here will present any new machines that have been added to the network or discovered, and present the operator with the opportunity to add them to the DNA database and deploy an agent automatically onto them. So between these four modes, we have a complete view of all PCs that DNA is managing, all users and their activity on the network, all additional devices that we've discovered across the network, and any new PCs that have been added to the network but as yet aren't part of the DNA enterprise. There are some extra bits that we can do to fine-tune our view. You'll see we have our departments here. Selecting an individual department will highlight the colour so we can see who we're working with. We can also right-click and select our properties, and you'll see we can now customise the properties and details for a department, including changing the department colour scheme to suit our own requirements. Now, as we're sat here at the moment on the Hardware Inventory tab, you'll also notice that clearly as I move between my departments, the data presented adapts accordingly. And for each component, the right-hand side of the toolbar changes to reflect that component's specific functionality. So in this case for Hardware Inventory, you'll see we have an inventory-specific component. We have some criteria that we can apply to customize our view. Do we want to see hardware or contracts on the page? And what kind of chart do we want to display? And finally, we have a filter for the hardware inventory. So currently we're looking at CPU, but maybe we'd like to look at memory stats, BIOS information, and so on. And as we move to software inventory, again, you'll see that this display changes to meet the criteria. If we move to a date-based component, such as metering components, you'll see our date-based filter appears again as before. So throughout the product, no matter which component we select, we will always have quick access to key functionality on the right-hand side of the main toolbar. We also have some options that sit at the very top of the screen, and by default we're on our home screen, but we can switch to our Tools menu, and as you'll see, this presents an entirely new view summarising a number of the key features that we need within NetSupport DNA as supporting tools. They're grouped and broken down into key areas. So we have our query tool, which allows us to create custom views for accessing data. We have our system settings, which is important in terms of our ability to first set up the product and ensure we can access all of the key components and enable them for activity. We have our operator management that allows us to create, during our evaluation or in ongoing use, our operator roles. And for any operator, we can view the operator information, and we can give access specifically to each and every component within the product at a very granular level. Within the main section under Tools, we have tools that allow us to either manage our database and store, so our database maintenance, query scheduling, and so on. We also have some supporting components, including our ability to manage and deliver acceptable use policies, discover and deploy our agent technology on other user machines, and to create and print barcodes for easy asset management. Our supporting remote tools include access to our remote control software, NetSupport Manager, messaging and chatting, and finally we have a status window that allows us to monitor in real time the activity of our DNA server and system or additional components. If we select the system, you'll see a menu appears on the right hand side as a view that allows us to see in real time system status, memory usage, the size of our queue, what current operators are online, and if our SNMP servers are functioning, and so on. And as before, we can simply jump back along this menu to our home screen. Thank you for viewing this tour. Please visit www.netsupportdna.com to find out more, or if appropriate, download a free 30-day trial.